Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital exercise spoilers for the week of October 27th to 31st fail to allude that Martin Gray may have a mysterious co-conspirator when it comes to the fake Monica Quartermaine will debacle. But is it Veronica Ronnie Bard, or is she just a pawn in his game? There's a lot to unload when it comes to this plot, so let's launch at the morning. There's been commodity veritably out about Ronnie appearing out of nowhere shortly after Monica's end. While Tracy Quartermaine knew of Monica's long-lost family, her cherished family-in-law hadn't mentioned Ronnie in the times leading up to her demise. The very fact that Ronnie ended up inheriting the Quartermaine manse, when Tracy, along with all the others, believed Michael Corinthos would score the Q family home, seems further than suspicious to Tracy. Still, she's been the only Quartermaine who has jumped to this conclusion. Weeks before Monica passed away, Martin had an odd hassle in the Q manse where he stumbled upon some letters. It nearly appeared as if he'd a light bulb moment, so when Ronnie arrived and Monica's will claimed that she was the bone who inherited the house, numerous GH suckers believed that Martin was ever before all this. With that said, is Ronnie in on Martin's scheme or simply intentionally being used? There's a chance that Martin was the one to write Ronnie letters on behalf of Monica and was the bone who organized the fake will, without Ronnie knowing. Still, as there have been some hints that Ronnie isn't as trouble clean as she's pretending to be, there's also a chance that Ronnie is in on all this and knows exactly what she's doing. GH suckers may recall that Ronnie left Giovanni Gio Palmieri that extravagant tip when he served her at Bobby's. Meanwhile, after Lulu Spencer did some digging in Ronnie's history, she mentioned that the woman was a waitress who lived a veritably humble life. Where would a waitress get that kind of plutocrat to leave a $1.50 tip? Plus, that big tip sounded veritably out of character for the person Lulu described. Perhaps Ronnie isn't really Ronnie, and Martin hired her to pretend to be Monica's family. Also again, perhaps Ronnie is Ronnie, a professional con, which is why everything Lulu dug up on her came out so squeaky clean. It would also explain why Monica kept her distance from Ronnie all these times. The General Hospital exercise for the week of October 27th to 31st also provides some intriguing sapience into what could unfold this week. The promo opens with Martin saying, "They're no way going to figure out that we're working together." As the videotape progresses, there's a clip of a woman's hand slipping a check back to a man at the Metro Court, too. As the hand seems to be from a youngish woman, there's a chance that Martin is working with someone unknown to observers or a character formerly established on oil. Also again, this scene could be fully unconnected to this plot, as these trials love to swerve suckers. As the GH promo progresses, an outraged Ronnie declares that Tracy wasn't the one to slip the Mickey in her drink, and she accuses someone unknown. Will she charge Martin? Is this part of their scheme, or will she point the cutlet to him or someone differently as part of their plan? Ronnie's days are numbered in the land of Port Charles, as Erica Slezak finished rephotographing a while ago, and has stated her character's run on the show was a short bone. As similar, General Hospital spoilers remind suckers that this plot is belting up, so it wouldn't be long until observers, and Tracy, eventually get to the bottom of what really brought Ronnie to city, and who Monica truly conscious the Q home to. The amber hues of the late afternoon sun cast a warm, forgiving glow over Port Charles, a town that had learned to wear its scars like badges of honor. At the center of this hard-won piece was the Quartermaine mansion, a bastion of old money and even older dramas. Today, however, the air within its opulent walls was light, charged with the uncomplicated joy of a celebration. It was the baptism of little baby boy Corinthos, the son of Sonny Corinthos and Carly Spencer, a child born into a legacy of power, conflict, and a fiercely protective love. The ceremony at the First Presbyterian Church had been a surprisingly serene affair. The encouraging words of the priest, speaking of redemption, new beginnings, and the washing away of original sin, had felt profoundly significant to the assembled congregation. For Sonny, a man whose life was a tapestry woven with threads of violence and tenderness, it was a promise of a cleaner slate for his son. For Carly, it was the sanctification of the family she had fought, schemed, and sacrificed everything to build. They stood at the font, a united front, their often tumultuous history momentarily silenced by the gentle splash of holy water on their son's forehead. The reception at the Quartermain estate was in full swing. Laughter and the clinking of champagne flutes provided a melodic backdrop to the scene of familial harmony. Michael and Willow Corinthos chatted amiably with Sam and Dante Falconeri. Jocelyn Jacks and Trina Robinson, the future of Port Charles, were laughing by the grand piano. Even the ever-scheming Nina Reeves was on her best behavior, offering a genuine, if slightly strained, smile to the happy couple. It was a picture of a community at peace, a delicate ecosystem of reconciled differences and fragile truces. Amidst this carefully constructed tranquility, Ronnie moved with a grace that belied the storms she had weathered. As a respected attorney and a trusted confidant to some of the city's most powerful figures, she was a picture of integrated strength. She exchanged pleasantries with Laura Collins, the mayor, and shared a warm, knowing look with Curtis Ashford, her partner in both their law firm and in navigating the complex waters of their shared history. To everyone present, Ronnie was a pillar, resilient, sharp, and impeccably composed. Her past was a closed book, one she had firmly locked and stored away. But the past has a sentience of its own, and a cruel sense of timing. The first sign of the impending earthquake was the subtle shift in the atmosphere near the grand French doors. A hush, starting as a whisper, began to spread through the crowd, followed by the turning of heads and the rustle of expensive fabrics as guests shifted to see the newcomer. He stood in the doorway, a man who seemed both out of place and yet terrifyingly familiar. He wasn't dressed for a baptism, his clothes were functional, slightly worn, speaking of long journeys and hard living. His face was tanned and lined by a sun that was not Port Charles's own, and his eyes, a piercing and unsettling blue, scanned the room with an unnerving intensity until they landed, and locked, on Ronnie. The champagne flute she was holding slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot in the sudden quiet. The color drained from her face so completely that for a moment, she looked like a marble statue, a monument to her own shock. All the strength, all the composure that defined her, evaporated in an instant, leaving behind a raw, unvarnished terror. "Ronnie," the man said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that carried through the silent room. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration, a reclaiming. "Long time no see." The encouraging words from the baptism, the priest's promises of new life, seemed to curdle in the air, replaced by a chilling premonition. Sonny Corinthos, his paternal and protective instincts immediately ignited, stepped forward, his posture shifting from relaxed host to wary sentinel. "Can I help you?" Sonny's voice was calm, but it held the steel edge that every person in the room recognized. "This is a private family event." The man's eyes didn't leave Ronnie's stricken face. A slow, humorless smile spread across his lips. "Family. That's a funny word. Isn't it, darling?" He took a step into the room, and the crowd seemed to part for him like the Red Sea. "I'm hurt I didn't get an invitation. Though I suppose after all these years, an RSVP would have been tricky." Carly moved to stand beside Sonny, her gaze darting between the stranger and her friend. "Ronnie? Who is this?" Ronnie tried to speak, but her voice was a trapped, strangled thing in her throat. She could only shake her head, her eyes wide with a panic that was entirely foreign to her. The man answered for her. "The name's Cale. Cale Jennings." He paused, letting the name hang in the air, a name that meant nothing to anyone but the one person it was meant to shatter. Then he delivered the blow, his tone laced with a mocking, proprietary cruelty. "I'm Ronnie's husband." The silence that followed was absolute, a vacuum of sound that sucked the very air from the room. "Husband." The word echoed, senseless and bizarre. "Ronnie? Married?" It was an impossibility, a fact that contradicted the very foundation of her identity in Port Charles. She was independent, self-possessed, answerable to no one. The idea that she had a husband, this rough, menacing stranger, was ludicrous. Curtis was the next to find his voice, stepping forward to stand protectively near Ronnie, though he was as confused as everyone else. "That's not possible. You need to leave." Cale's smile widened, a predator enjoying the game. "Is that any way to talk to your, what would the term be? Business partner's husband?" See, I've been away. A long, long time. But a man doesn't forget his wife. His eyes swept over Ronnie's elegant dress, the diamonds at her ears, the sheer evidence of the life she had built without him. Though it seems some people try very, very hard to. The angry threats were implicit in his every word, in his posture, in the very fact of his existence here, in this sanctified space. This was no happy reunion. This was an ambush. Ronnie, Carly said, her voice firm but gentle, cutting through Ronnie's paralysis. Is this true? It was the directness of the question that finally broke the spell. Ronnie drew in a shuddering breath, her hands trembling as she wrapped her arms around herself. She gave one sharp, agonized nod. Yes, she whispered, the word a confession that cost her dearly. His name is Cale. We were married, a lifetime ago. The admission sent a fresh wave of shock through the room. The whispers began, frantic and disbelieving. Cale took another step forward, now fully inside the circle of the party. A lifetime ago? That's a dramatic way of putting it, Veronica. Till death do us part, wasn't it? And as you can see, he spread his arms wide, I'm very much alive. The secret was out. The first layer, anyway. The existence of a husband. But the unbelievable secret, the true reason for his sudden appearance, was still coiled tightly within him, waiting to strike. You need to leave, Cale, Ronnie said, finding a shard of her former strength. You have no right to be here. That marriage, it was over the day you walked out. Walked out? Cale laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Is that the story you've been telling yourself? That I just walked out? That makes it easier, doesn't it? To play the abandoned wife, to build this castle, he sneered, gesturing at the Quartermain opulence. The truth is a little more complicated. The truth is, I didn't walk out. I was forced out. I was taken. The room was captivated, a captive audience to a drama they hadn't known they were cast in. Laura Collins moved forward, her mayoral demeanor taking over. Mr. Jennings, this is neither the time nor the place. Whatever your grievance is, it can be discussed through proper channels. I must ask you to leave before I'm forced to call the police. The police? Cale's eyes flashed with a dark amusement. Oh, I think the police will be very interested in what I have to say. But not for the reasons you think. He turned his gaze back to Ronnie, and the mockery vanished, replaced by a cold, unforgiving fury. Tell them, Ronnie. Tell them why I disappeared. Tell them what you did. Ronnie shook her head, tears finally welling in her eyes. Don't, Cale. Please. Don't, he thundered, his voice rising for the first time, causing several people to jump. I've spent years in hell because of you. Years. And you have the nerve to say don't? He turned to address the stunned crowd, a performer claiming his stage. You all think you know her. The brilliant lawyer, the loyal friend. But let me tell you about the woman you call Ronnie. Her name is Veronica Jennings. And 20 years ago, she was involved with a very dangerous man. A man I crossed. And when he came for me, she didn't stand by me. She didn't fight for me. She made a choice. He let the suspense build, his eyes sweeping over the faces of Sonny, Carly, Curtis, Michael. She gave me to him. A collective, sharp intake of breath. Carly's hand flew to her mouth. Sonny's eyes narrowed, his own history with betrayal and difficult choices giving him a unique perspective on this accusation. That's a lie. Ronnie cried out, her voice breaking. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Cale shot back, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You knew he was coming. You knew what he would do. And you handed me over to save your own skin. You signed my death warrant, Veronica. The only problem was, he didn't kill me. He took a final, menacing step towards her, now just a few feet away. The angry threats were no longer implicit, they were palpable, hanging in the air like a toxic mist. He kept me. He took me to a compound in the middle of nowhere, and he kept me like an animal in a cage. For 10 years. 10 years of my life, gone. While you were here, going to law school, building your career, pretending I never existed. The unbelievable secret was out. It was more shocking than a simple abandonment, more horrifying than a messy divorce. It was a tale of betrayal and survival that belonged in a spy thriller, not in the sun-dappled sitting room of the Quartermain mansion. Ronnie hadn't just been married, she was allegedly complicit in her husband's decade-long imprisonment. The looks of sympathy in the room were now mixed with horror and doubt. Could it be true? The raw pain on Cale's face was real. The utter devastation on Ronnie's was equally real. It wasn't a choice, Cale. It was a threat. Ronnie sobbed, her composure completely gone. He said he would kill my family. My mother. He said he would kill you. He said if I handed you over, he would just teach you a lesson. He promised you'd be released. I thought I was saving your life. You thought? Cale roared. You thought? For 10 years, I lived in a concrete box. For 10 years, I wondered if the woman I loved had sold me out for a handful of silver. And when I finally escaped, what did I find? That Veronica Jennings had vanished, and in her place was Ronnie, a hotshot lawyer who'd buried her past along with her husband. He looked at Curtis, at Sonny, his expression one of pure, unadulterated contempt. You trust her? You work with her? You let her near your children? You have no idea who she is. She's a coward who sacrifices others to save herself. That's enough, Sonny's voice cut through the tension, low and absolutely final. He moved to stand directly between Cale and Ronnie. You've said your piece. Now, you're leaving. This is my home. That is my friend. And you are not welcome here. Cale didn't back down. He met Sonny's gaze with a challenge of his own. Or what? You'll have your goons throw me out? You'll make me disappear? She's already tried that. It didn't take. The standoff was electric, a battle of two formidable wills. But Cale held the ultimate weapon, the truth, or his version of it. He finally took a step back, his eyes never leaving Ronnie's broken form. This isn't over, Veronica. Not by a long shot. You built this beautiful life on top of my grave. Well, I'm not dead. And I'm here to claim what's mine. Everything you have, this status, this respect, this firm, it's all mine by right. Marital property. He turned his gaze to Curtis. You might want to start looking for a new partner, Mr. Ashford. Our firm is about to have a very messy, very public change in management. With that, he turned and walked out the way he had come, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. The silence he left behind was heavier and more profound than the one that had greeted his arrival. The baptismal celebration was utterly destroyed, its joy extinguished by the ghost who had refused to stay dead. Ronnie collapsed into a chair, her body racked with sobs. The encouraging words of the day were a cruel memory. The angry threats of her husband were now the governing force of her life. Carly and Curtis rushed to her side, a maelstrom of emotions on their own faces, concern, confusion, and the unavoidable, nagging seed of doubt. Who was the woman they had called a friend? A victim of a monstrous threat, forced into an impossible decision? Or the calculating survivor Cale had portrayed, a woman who had sacrificed her husband to save herself? The unbelievable secret was no longer a secret. It was a bomb that had detonated in the heart of Port Charles, and its radioactive fallout would contaminate every relationship, every alliance, and every truth they thought they knew. The past had not just returned, it had come to collect a debt, and it would not leave until everything Ronnie had built was torn down, brick by painful brick.